Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I've got a really good feeling about this program this morning, like I do every morning. But on today's broadcast, during the Steuben County Office for the Aging segment of our program, we're going to be talking to none other than NASCAR legend Kyle Petty. So don't miss that in the 7 o'clock hour. We also have a lot of stories that we need to catch up on, a lot of things that we've discussed all week with new information, but we also have new information that we'll have to catch up on tomorrow. First, we start with a comment after yesterday's broadcast. Rick writes in, "Morning, Frank." Well, good morning, Rick. Well, the first quarter was a little rough. If it wasn't Biden's fault, someone would be on the chopping block. I see Trump's dirty man, Elon, is going to spend more time with his companies and less time as Trump's first buddy. Probably a good idea. People that are tight with Trump usually go broke and have the courts after them. Interesting that kind of admitting to the lawfare of people that are associated with Trump having to deal with that lawfare. But continuing, Trump got his precious minerals deal with Ukraine. Yes, a huge breaking story. We're going to be talking about that this morning. Dumb of Ukraine to give away their natural resources like that, but smart as Ukraine isn't going anywhere now with the U.S. having claimed all those resources. Sorry, Putin. Pack up and go home. Did you catch all those kissers at Trump's cabinet meeting today? I've never said, "Are you kidding me?" more in one day ever. Makes me sick. The Ministry of Propaganda. Thank you, Rick, for writing in after yesterday's broadcast. I appreciate that. But to what Rick was saying, the U.S. and the Ukraine did sign that long-awaited mineral deal. Trump, and we'll talk about this later on in the program because we're going to go through some breaking stories here at first. But Trump revealing what he and Zelensky talked about at the Pope's funeral. But the Trump administration and the Ukrainian government finalized a deal yesterday, creating a joint fund to boost the reconstruction of the war-torn nation, calling for investments in Kiev's oil, gas, and rare mineral industries. Ukraine's economy minister, Servenko, posted on X that the fund would be managed 50-50 and that future military aid from Washington could be considered a contribution. Quote, "Together with the United States, we will create a fund that will attract Western investment to our country. We will manage this fund jointly with the United States. Neither party will have a majority vote, reflecting an equal partnership between Ukraine and the United States. The fund will be filled with income only from new licensees for projects in the field of critical materials and oil and gas, which will be split in half between the U.S. and Ukraine. The U.S. will also contribute to the fund and can do so through new assistance, for example, air defense systems for Ukraine." Further stating that the United States will help attract additional investment and technology to drum up more business for the fund, which will be supported by the U.S. International Finance Corporation, or as it's known, the DFC. DFC will help us attract investment and technologies from funds and companies in both the U.S. and the EU and other countries to support our fight against the Russian enemy, said Servenko. The fund will then invest in mineral and oil and gas projects as well as related infrastructure or processing. The specific investment projects to which the funds will be directed will be determined jointly by the Ukraine and the United States. They said Ukraine expects that for the first 10 years, the fund's profits and revenues will not be distributed, but can only be invested in Ukraine, but noted that these conditions will be discussed further. The fund will not be taxed, so that investing yields the greatest possible results. So that's kind of the deal at face value, kind of the bare bones of what was agreed to by the United States and Ukraine. So that is an update from kind of a long-awaited update from a story that started a few months ago when Trump started calling for the U.S. to be a part of their mineral rights. We'll talk about it more in depth later on in the program. But this breaking last night as well, Hunter Biden Yes, Hunter Biden, in the news again, abruptly dropped his lawsuit yesterday against two Internal Revenue Service whistleblowers who alleged a wide-ranging cover-up in the Department of Justice to stonewall the tax fraud investigation into him. Biden, the former president's son, had slapped a lawsuit against the two whistleblowers back in 2023, alleging that they, quote, targeted and sought to embarrass Mr. Biden via public statements to the media in which they and their representatives disclosed confidential information about a private citizen's tax matters. Without giving any specific details as to why they were dropping the case, he moved to voluntarily dismiss his lawsuit against Gary Shapley, who was an IRS supervisor, special agent at the time in question, and Joe Ziegler, who was an agent. The two men said in a statement, quote, "It's always been clear that the lawsuit was an attempt to intimidate us. Intimidation and retaliation were never going to work. We truly wanted our day in court to provide the complete story. But it appears Mr. Biden was afraid to actually fight this case in a court of law after all. His voluntary dismissal of the case tells you everything you need to know about who was right and who was wrong," end quote. Now, the dismissal comes about a month after Biden's four attorneys on the lawsuit filed a motion to withdraw as his counsel. We have heard that Hunter is going through some financial issues. The lawyers for the whistleblower said Hunter Biden brought this lawsuit against two honorable federal agents in retaliation for blowing the whistle on the preferential treatment he was given. Shapley and Ziegler did nothing wrong, never had to seek a pardon, and their actions have now been entirely vindicated once again. All right, how much breaking news can we go through in the first 10 or so minutes? But we've been talking about kind of judicial activism. We've been talking about numerous cases of judicial activism. This is interesting. So the college student who is accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership, and this has become common, unfortunately, when you see people like J.B. Pritzker and Jasmine Crockett, others, we can list the names, that have been calling for this kind of, or been using rhetoric that seems to insinuate a call for violence against Trump and Trump supporters. Pritzker saying no, I think it was no Republican or no Trump supporter should have a moment of rest, I'm paraphrasing. And then you see slaps on the wrist for so many involved with these attacks on Tesla dealerships or Tesla vehicles. We had a story last week, I believe it was, where someone that had caused over $20,000 in damage to Tesla vehicles, not even a slap on the wrist, basically charges essentially dismissed. And that was from a very activist judge. We went all into that on last week's program, where it was, she felt in the community's best interest to let that person go after the $20,000 in damage. But yet that same day, charging someone who had vandalized a vehicle, someone who had worked at a fast food restaurant, vandalizing a vehicle to less extent, to less amount of money, getting the book thrown at her. But we'll continue. The college student accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership has been released from federal custody so that they could continue their gender-affirming medical care, according to a report. Owen McIntyre, 19 years old, is facing federal charges for allegedly tossing two Molotov cocktails into a Missouri Tesla dealership last month, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage to two Cybertrucks and two charging stations. Never mind the aspect, and luckily there was no injuries, but you could see where this could get out of hand quickly. The University of Massachusetts physics student was granted release by U.S. Magistrate Judge Jessica Hedges due to, quote, serious and ongoing medical needs, which include gender-affirming medical care that requires daily medication as well as mental health support, according to KMBC. McIntyre is also on the autism spectrum and was diagnosed with both ADHD and depression, all of which require medication and treatment that excuse him from remaining in prison, according to his lawyers, and an argument that they successfully made. By moving back home with his parents, he will have access to the care providers who are familiar with him and his specific needs, the court document reads. Judge Jessica Hedges, who was appointed in 2024, overruled objections from U.S. attorneys from the Western District of Missouri who claimed that terrorism-related charges warranted that McIntyre be treated as a public safety threat. McIntyre was granted release into the custody of his parents on April the 24th and will undergo strict confinement and electronic monitoring at the family's Missouri home while he awaits trial. The feds sought to keep the 19-year-old in custody during the lead up to the trial, with officials emphasizing at the time of his arrest that Tesla-related vandalism would be prosecuted thoroughly. At the time, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying, "Let me be extremely clear to anyone who still wants to firebomb a Tesla property, you will not evade us. You will be arrested, you will be prosecuted, you will spend decades behind bars. It is not worth it." Now, McIntyre is charged with malicious damage to property by fire of any property used in interstate commerce and one count of unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device. McIntyre is set to appear for a May 1st hearing, so today, at the federal courthouse in Kansas City, Missouri. We have other updates, but that's another example where obviously there's still a case going on here, but where in many instances these attacks on Tesla dealerships and Tesla vehicles have almost been, if not ignored, encouraged, actually. And it's a scary precedent, but unfortunately we've had example after example. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk about the New York State budget, some of the things happening in Albany. We're also going to talk about the Democrat Party. Kamala Harris gave her speech, which you could have attended virtually for $25 to watch that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. A few things here about the Trump administration. Boy, Steve Witkoff, someone behind the scenes in the White House, wants Witkoff gone because there is an anonymous source that said he shouldn't be leading the Iran and Russia negotiations, according to allies and insiders. Now, for this to be leaked to the New York Post makes me think that it's someone in power that wants him out, not just an anonymous source like we talked about in the past, which is, a janitor says something about Pete Hegseth, and they say, well, insiders at the Pentagon. And it seems a little more quote-unquote official than that. So we'll talk about that. We have other updates when we come back. A few things here about colleges and universities. A few things here about Kilmar Abrego Garcia in the news yet again. But let's take our first break. And again, don't forget, in the 7 o'clock hour, you do not want to miss our conversation with NASCAR legend Kyle Petty. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, just getting warmed up. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So glad that you've joined us this morning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Kamala Harris bashes Trump's policies in her first speech since she left office. Yes, we are going to talk about that speech, Mark. Also, Tim Walz had a very, I think you can use the term stunning account of why he was chosen as the VP candidate. We'll get to that later on as well. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning. Well, good morning to you. I heard Hunter Biden needs a job. Do you think President Trump will put him on the board of one of the mineral companies in Ukraine? After all, he has the experience. That's a very good point. That would actually be hilarious. Speaking of something like that, some call it trolling, if you will. We brought to you this story and had a good laugh yesterday where President Trump was asked, who do you think should be Pope? And he said, I think I could do it. I'd like to be Pope. And when he says those things, it's just to get those on the left and those in the media into a tizzy. Because some will take it very serious. They take everything he says so seriously. So you can see, power-hungry statements like that. So we had a little fun with that. Well, Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday suggested that the 230 Catholic cardinals and the conclave, quote, keep an open mind, end quote, about considering President Trump for Pope. So he took to Twitter, well, X, formerly known as Twitter. This is Senator Lindsey Graham. He said, quote, I was excited to hear that President Trump is open to the idea of being the next Pope. This would truly be a dark horse candidate, but I would ask the papal, is that how you say that? I think so, conclave, and Catholic faithful to keep an open mind about this possibility. The first Pope U.S. President combination has many upsides. Watching for white smoke, Trump, and then the Roman numerals, whatever that would equal. I didn't do the math ahead of time. Graham showed support for the idea after President Trump was asked by a reporter if he had anyone in mind and responded, I'd like to be Pope. That'd be my number one choice. So anyway, I know many are rooting for Cardinal Dolan. I know Cardinal Dolan from the Al Smith dinners. He seems like a very nice gentleman. But right now, potential cardinals in the running to be named the next pontiff are from the Philippines, Italy, France, Sri Lanka, the Netherlands, and other areas as well. Now, there has never been a pope from the United States. However, Francis was the first pontiff from the Americas. So, Lindsey Graham rooting for dark horse candidate Donald J. Trump to be the next pope, and I think he raises a good point that the first U.S. Pope and the first Pope U.S. President combo has a lot of upsides. Okay, at the school front, according to the New York Post, Harvard University has admitted the ugly truth. The left's long march through its faculty and administration has borne poisonous fruit in the form of blazing Jew hatred and the overall ruin of its campus climate and curriculum. And you don't have to take the Post or my word for it, as we've talked about this so extensively. Just read their own report that sprang up in support of Hamas after October 7th. The committee tasked with looking into this anti-Semitic uproar on the campus detailed how over decades, what began as a tense zone of disagreement on campus, specifically over Israel's efforts to defend itself from terrorist aggression and the national aims of various Palestinian political factions. It changed into an attempt by this is an exact quote, attempt by student activists to drive Israeli students and Jewish students who feel connected to Israel out of student life, end quote. This process was in train well before October 7th and results, to use the words of a faculty member, the report cites, from a, quote, general shift of power from regular faculty to the para-academic administrators that has played an outsized role in the politicalization and radicalization of academia and its intellectual and reputational decline. In short, Harvard has suffered, quote, an ideological effort underway to weaken the post-World War II social consensus that anti-Semitism is a form of bias, along with politicized instruction that mainstreams and normalizes Jew and Israel hate through the school couches, or though the school couches this in a dodge, i.e. what many Jewish and Israeli students experience as anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. Turns out when you hand the keys to a school over to these ideologues, these radicalized ideologues, its quality ultimately declines. And it's not just the Jewish students who suffer. Everyone loses out on the diversity of thought and free exchange of ideas that should characterize life on campus. Instead of reading the greats or mastering organic chemistry, they get crammed with gutter propaganda and crackpot theory. Whether the Trump administration's rightful cutoff of funding will affect such change and force them to root out this anti-Semitism is an open question, one that we don't know the answer to as of yet. But the woke academic cat is now out of the bag, and there's no shoving it back in. So they're realizing that they've allowed this anti-Semitism, this radicalization of faculty and students run amok for too long, and now they're paying the price. As a matter of fact, Trump saying yesterday, we might end Harvard grants entirely. They don't, quote, really need it, and all they do is teach remedial math anyway. This was in an interview that he gave to News Nation. He stated that there may be a permanent end to Harvard getting billions from the government, and, quote, we can grant that money to people that really need it. Citing issues with foreign students and Harvard offering remedial math, while also stating that if we're going to give grant money, we want people in that school that are going to love our country, not people that are going to hate our country. This is the exact quote. And then we got to take a break. Harvard gets $4 or $5 billion a year from the United States government in the form of grants, and they have $53 billion in reference to their endowment. And yet they don't treat the people right. They take foreign students, nobody knows where they come from, and they viciously hate our country. And I'm saying if we're going to give grant money, we want people in that school that are going to love our country, not people that are going to hate our country. They run a bad operation up there, and we have to get to the bottom of it. On top of that, they said they want to teach their students remedial mathematics. That's basic math. 2 and 2 is 4. And you say, well, Harvard's supposed to be so great. Why do people have to have remedial? That's basic, very simple mathematics. So we're looking into Harvard. But we give them billions of dollars a year, and that may very well stop. And that's up to the president, and it's up to our government. We don't have to grant their money. We can grant that money to people that really need it. And frankly, people that you'd rather have me give that money to. So there is your college and university updates. Well, I do have one more update on it, but we'll on a different front, not on the anti-Semitism that unfortunately keeps rearing its ugly head at these college campuses. But this is a kind of a different take on the universities. Then we're going to give you an update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and then into some Democrat issues, some New York State issues, all that, much more. Just getting warmed up. Keep those comments, keep those texts coming in. As I said, Kyle Petty is going to be our guest in the next hour. Looking forward to that. That's during the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. So you want to set your alarm. So if you're out in the kitchen making coffee, you don't want to miss Kyle Petty. But right now, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. As always, we thank our friends at Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us this picturesque view of historic Market Street in the Gafford District. Call Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. So this was a little while ago. It's kind of when Doge first started making the news. You may recall they had sent out a letter to federal employees asking, name, 5 things that you did last week? And there was an uproar in the media. And we all thought, well, you shouldn't really have anything to hide. That's pretty low bar being set. Even Elon Musk at the time saying, trust me, we're not expecting a lot. But there was a sophomore student at Brown University, if you recall, that had sent a letter to the faculty at Brown University that was emulating that same letter that Doge sent. What did you do last week? He is now facing disciplinary action after he sent an email, it was to non-faculty, employees, asking him what they did all day to try to figure out why the Ivy League's tuition had gotten so expensive. He is now facing the disciplinary action. He said, and I quote, Brown is charging me for misrepresentation for saying I'm affiliated with the Brown Spectre, which I am, because the Brown Spectre is an independent nonprofit and not a registered student group, said Alex Shee in an email statement to Fox News. Brown is also charging me for violating their IT policy for publishing Brown employee data without specifying which provisions of the IT policy were violated. He maintains, however, that he did not violate any provisions of the IT policy. During free weekends in March, she went to the common room in his dorm's basement, a space that floods when it rains and requires plastic tarps, despite the school's $90,000 yearly tuition, and used AI to try to determine what Brown employees did and why the school was so expensive. The sophomore then created a database of the 3,805 non-faculty employees who worked at Brown University and emailed them to ask, "What do you do all day?" In the inquiry, he said that he identified himself as a journalist for the Brown Spectre, a dormant on-campus libertarian journal that a group of students is planning to relaunch. He formatted his database to identify three particular jobs: DEI jobs, redundant jobs, and we'll say baloney jobs. She said he wanted to investigate DEI because of President Trump's executive orders and his administration threatening to withhold federal funds to universities with DEI policies. The goal was to get as much data as possible so that his research could be accurate. But only 20 of the 3,805 people emailed responded, and many of the responses were profane and hostile. He also said that his social security number was leaked. Brown is retaliating against me for exposing that the exorbitant tuition costs are going to bloated bureaucracy, not educating students. It's no surprise that the House Judiciary Committee has opened an investigation into Brown and other Ivy League schools for price fixing and other anti-competitive business practices, such as requiring students to purchase on-campus housing and meal plans, which may operate at a surplus in order to subsidize the administrative costs. Because Brown can't outright punish me for calling out their hypocrisy, they are instead accusing me of committing obscure conduct violations that are not applicable to my situation in order to scare other students from speaking out. Back in April, a post on X, Elon Musk replied to Xi's post announcing the school's disciplinary action with the word unreal. Brown administrators say Xi's case has nothing to do with free speech, quite the opposite. In spite of what has been reported publicly, framing this as a free speech issue, it is absolutely not. This is a statement from Brown. At the center of Brown's review are questions focused on whether improper use of non-public Brown data, non-public data systems, and or targeting of individual employees violated law or policy. Brown has detailed procedures in place to investigate alleged conduct code violations, resolve them, and implement discipline in instances when students are found responsible. And these will continue to guide our actions. Students have ample opportunity to provide information and participate directly in that process to ensure that all decisions are made with a complete understanding of the curriculum. The school is proceeding in the matter in complete accordance with free expression guarantees and appropriate procedural safeguards under Brown policy and applicable law. Now, Xi, however, said he is expanding his initiative to look at other Ivy League schools, including the University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, and Cornell, to, quote, expose wasteful expenditures there, and released an online tool to demand that schools cease and desist DEI. There you go. That's an update and kind of a unique story. Now, we learn from Chris Van Hollen's friend, Senator Chris Van Hollen's friend, and other Democrat politicians that Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, I've said from the beginning, I think this is a weird cart to hitch your wagon to. To me, supporting someone that looks to be and is alleged to be an MS-13 gang member, someone that has a record of spousal abuse, someone that was stopped in a car belonging to a human trafficker, the list goes on and on. That just seems like someone you wouldn't want to cozy up to make a political point. Well, now we learn Kilmar Abrego Garcia bragged that he could kill his wife and get away with it. That's according to his wife in a newly unearthed protective order request. This is not, if I'm not mistaken, this is not the only protective order request. He once boasted he could kill his wife and no one could do anything to him, according to a request for a motion for a protective order that his wife filed back in 2020. Jennifer Vasquez Shira wrote, I also have a recording that he told my ex-mother-in-law that even if he kills me, no one could do anything to him. The newly surfaced documents preceded a 2021 protective order request she filed against her husband. In that document, she alleged he had punched, scratched, and grabbed her, with some of the alleged abuse so severe she was left with bruises and was bleeding. The 2020 request for a protective order details a fight the couple had, with Sura alleging that Abrego Garcia took her phone and demanded her car keys before flying into a rage when she refused. She said she went upstairs to cook breakfast for the kids, but Abrego Garcia shut off the stove before locking the children in their bedroom. I'm not going to go through all of this, but quote, "Me and my kids are afraid now. He kicked me, pushed me, slapped me in the face, and threatened me, saying it was commonplace." Now, again, this is just on top of all the other stories we've heard about him. But keep in mind, this is the person that they report in the media as a Maryland man improperly detained. Now, you've got to remember, when you say returning, or he needs to return home, he is already home. El Salvador is his native country. He was here illegally. So if nothing else, he was an illegal migrant. And that's on top of, as President Trump had referenced in that meeting with Terry Moran, or that interview, I should say, with Terry Moran 2 days ago, that he has alleged ties to MS-13. So I would think it's a bad move for Democrats to use him as some type of, in their mind, an opportunity to go after Trump's policies. I think that only hurts their cause even further, and we're going to give you an example of that and why I think our thoughts on that were proven right when we come back. Then a lot of other things to get to. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking roof cam. Boy, it looks like a painting, doesn't it? Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer: I bet that ICE investigated Garcia to the max, and they should. But they did it to cover their butts so they don't have to bring him back. One of my favorite parts of the interview that Trump had with Terry Moran, well, the best part, I think we can all agree, is when he said, I only did this interview because I don't even know who you are. Was when he said, when he was being really, again, obnoxiously attacked by Terry Moran. Not attacked, obnoxiously questioned. And it's not because of the topic matter of the question, but just the going back in over and over again, being aggressive. After 4 years of asking Joe Biden what his favorite ice cream is, it was just very frustrating to watch. But when he was aggressively asking him, meaning the president, he kept saying, why don't you can make one call to El Salvador. Why don't you get Garcia back? And the president finally said, I would if he was such the gentleman you say he is. But Hakeem Jeffries, now wants Democrats to put an end to their trips to El Salvador. I thought the PR on that is horrible for numerous reasons. Number one, you're going over to preach about a topic that helped Trump win in a landslide victory in November: illegal immigration and deportation. So you're spending, this is another part of it, you're spending taxpayer dollars for a photo op to try to bring a man home. They say home. He's home now. He's from El Salvador. So to bring a person back to the United States illegally, and that's why the El Salvadorian president had such a great line. You're not seriously asking me to smuggle in a terrorist to the United States, are you? That was a great line. But these Democrats are going over there and trying to bring back to America an illegal migrant with alleged ties to MS-13, a record of abusing his wife. I never thought it was a good move. I said it from the beginning. I thought this is the kind of positions that Democrats take that lose them elections. They don't have to listen to me. And I don't know why they would listen to me. But in that instance, it just seemed that you got to find somebody better than Garcia. But Jeffries now wants them to end their trips, or taxpayer-funded trips, to El Salvador. Cory Booker and the Hispanic Caucus were planning on going, and we had talked about that. But Democrat leadership seems to want El Salvador trips to stop for a while. I wonder why that is. Now, that's interesting because we had mentioned Cory Booker wanting to go because Cory Booker was fresh off his huge victory of talking for 25 hours and accomplishing nothing, which was enough to get him a lot of attention from the Democrat Party and from voters of the Democrat Party, because all they want is for their Democrats to, quote, do something. That's what the resistance is all about. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked Monday whether Democrats should continue to advocate for the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and the other men wrongly shipped to El Salvador by making the trip to the country to put a spotlight on the issue. Jeffries said, quote, "Our reaction is that Donald Trump has the lowest approval rating of any president in modern American history." Read between the lines. He knows this is a losing issue. But while Jeffries may be publicly agnostic on El Salvador trips, like the one Robert Garcia, Yasmin Ansari, Maxwell Frost, and Maxine Dexter recently took privately, he sees the trips as having run their course. Two Democrat aides spoke to the Bulwark and said that the minority leader has discouraged further excursions to the country, even as pressure mounts within the party to try to turn up the heat on Trump for sending 238 men to a notorious prison system known for human rights abuses. They want to let the El Salvador stuff slow down, a senior House staffer said. Now, Jeffries' office initially declined to comment, but after the publication of the piece that stated that he wanted them to be scaled back, a spokesperson put out a statement calling it false, that it was thinly sourced, leaving out that their office did not initially push back when contacted prior to the publication. Jeffries has repeatedly said House Democrats will never stop fighting for the release of Mr. Abrego Garcia. All right. So Chris Van Hollen starting the party and others wanting to continue the party of taxpayer-funded trips to El Salvador to support a person with that kind of record that I continue to state. I say go for it. Hey, this is something interesting before we get into New York State issues, which we will when we come back. CNN's Scott Jennings has become kind of a star, if you will. Trump called him up on stage at that rally to mark the 100 days of his presidency. Scott Jennings, kind of the lone voice of conservatives on CNN, and not a wishy-washy Republican. You know, very often a CNN and MSNBC, places like that, will hire a quote-unquote Republican that is just probably as far away from a true Republican as you can be. You know, they'll hate Trump. I mean, how many people do you see, even a couple people on The View, that claim that they are Republican, and you just laugh when you hear them talk about their beliefs. So it's kind of a rhino situation, Republican in name only. Not Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings has had great points. We quoted him extensively during the campaign. Well, conservative CNN pundit Scott Jennings is thinking about looking into running to replace Kentucky GOP Senator Mitch McConnell. But he is waiting to see if President Trump will give him the green light. A veteran political strategist, an anonymous source, said, "If the president wants me, I'll run." Oh, no, it wasn't anonymous. I thought it said anonymous here. Where was it? Oh, he actually said it in an after party following the White House Correspondents' Dinner. My apologies. "If the president wants me to run, I'll run. If he wants somebody else, I'll support that candidate," Jennings said. He was one time actually an advisor to Mitch McConnell. A well-connected GOP operative told the Post that Jennings' interest in running for Senate was certainly not fake. But he himself, Jennings, has not responded immediately to a request for comment. His clashes with liberal pundits on the CNN's show Newsnight with Abby Phillips and his defense of Trump administration policies have earned him gushing praise from Republicans and Democrats alike. Last month, Jennings received a big pay raise and a new contract at CNN, even though the network declined to let him headline his own show. Yeah, they're not willing to give a conservative that much of a soapbox. But just the fact that he got a raise when so many others are getting cut speaks to his popularity. Trump saying at that 100-day rally, "He defends me all the time on CNN, and he defends me really well, but he can't go too far because he'll get fired." In a show of support, Trump invited Jennings on stage, joking that it would be the end of his TV appearances on CNN. Michigan, we are flying in here today, and I said, look at these farms. I've got to get a farm in Michigan because when you own as many liberals as I do, you got to get a place to put them all, he said when he got up on stage. Ex-Obama advisor Van Jones said, I think he relishes a role in challenging the overwhelmingly liberal audience, but he also understands television. The heel has to be more of a likable rascal than someone who's just perceived as utterly evil. He knows how to dance that dance. It's a rare gift. Eric Erickson tweeting out, could I nominate Scott Jennings for the United States Senate from the Commonwealth of Kentucky? He'd be a heck of a McConnell replacement. Something to keep an eye on. All right, we got to take a break. This hour's going quick. We're going to talk about some state issues when we return. A little quiet this morning. Everybody got plumb tuckered out after Tuesday's show. So many comments, so many waves. But coming up in the next hour, NASCAR legend Kyle Petty. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Before we read viewer comments, I just want to remind you, we highlighted this earlier in the week, and it's just coming up quickly, and I know people are making plans for the weekend. Don't forget about the Corning Moose and their upcoming Heart of the Community event. When was it? Couple months ago? I can't remember the exact date. But when they had that great fun event, Wienerville, for the Salvation Army of Corning, had a blast. It was just a great time. And that's not just because I had good luck on the basket raffles. But with this event, it's going to benefit Potter's Hands. It's called Cinco de Derby. And it's just $15 entry fee, and it gets you 2 tacos and an order of nachos, a buffet of assorted foods, and access to games, raffles, good music, Kentucky Derby hat contest with prizes, special Derby and Cinco de Mayo themed cocktail specials, all that and much more. You are going to have an amazing time. I know I did at their last event, so don't miss that. It's this Saturday, 4 till 10 p.m. for the event itself, the food from 4 to 7, and the food is outstanding. As someone that's not even a big hot dog guy, I ate until I could not eat anymore at the last event. I know the food's going to be just as great at this one. Okay, some comments from viewers. Mark writes in, when the Democrats try to make an issue with the media, with them against Trump, and it doesn't work, boy, they sure back down fast and try something else. But what they don't realize is the American people aren't buying it. I agree. I think that's same with this Garcia. I think the American people are looking at this and going, What are they working for us, or they're working for an illegal migrant who was never in this country legally in the first place? And wait, he's alleged to have MS-13 ties and beat his wife? I mean, that's who you're hitching your wagon to? I just don't understand it. But that's the decision they made. It's none of my business. But the American people, I just don't think are buying it. Ken writes in, Ken says, it's incredibly telling that the Democrats are against any reduction in fraud and abuse of the taxpayer money. The well-endowed universities that have their hands out for taxpayer funding could be likened to a homeless person asking for money at an intersection while standing next to their new BMW. Great point. The only reasons I can think of for the Democrats sending our money to well-endowed schools is that they are buying the liberal indoctrination of our youth, or they are getting kickbacks, like I'm sure they've been getting from the other waste and fraud that Doge has been uncovering. Yes, there could be a kickback scenario there. I do think a lot of it is you send the money to these schools that they know are radicalizing their students. That plays a very important role, because we may laugh and say, look at these crazy kids protesting, but those kids are going to be in the workforce in a few short years. And everybody says, yeah, but when they get into the real world, they'll learn what it's like. That's not the case. I've been saying this, I said it way back in radio. I've been saying it for a long time. And it proved to be true, just so you know, and I'm not going to be one of those I told you so kind of people. But way back I said, it's going to start with government institutions, and then it's going to go into the working world. And this is before DEI took off. So DEI proved my point right, that the young people are going to go out and they're going to demand these things. And you're going to say, well, bosses and things. No, the bosses and the owners don't want to be accused of some type of phobia. So they end up, quote unquote, adapting and changing. And so this radicalization that they're being taught today will trickle out into the quote unquote real world in the future. And that's why I think a lot of that money was going to these universities, because the message that they were teaching was supported by many in the bureaucracy. So, oh yeah, hey, comment from a viewer. Support Potter's Hands. Sex trafficking victims, critical care. Thank you for that. Yes, that's what the event, give me another excuse. I don't mind. That's what the Corning Moose fundraiser is all about, supporting an amazing organization, Potter's Hands. And that's why we are supporting that event on Saturday. Okay, speaking of events, we're going to tell you about another one when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox getting ready to wrap up our number one. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Thank you to our friends at Boss Security. I can never get enough of that view. I love the roof cam addition to Frankly Speaking. So thank you to Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer. Much appreciation to you, Frank. Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Okay, a quick announcement. Our good friend, Mayor John Buckley from the city of Hornell, announced this. This is somewhat breaking news, announced this late yesterday. He said, "It is with excitement that I announce that the 16th annual Mustang Rally of the Finger Lakes is relocating to Hornell and will be held at Veterans Memorial Park at James Street after 15 successful years in Phelps, New York. To ensure a smooth transition, we have partnered with the wonderful people at Cruisin' Time to help organize the Mustang Rally. Cruisin' Time has been organizing car shows throughout our area for the last decade and are a perfect fit for the Mustang Rally. This annual event is set to take place on Friday, August 1st, so you have plenty of time to plan, and Saturday, August 2nd. And we are thrilled to welcome Mustang enthusiasts from all over the region to our wonderful city. The rally will kick off with a cruise to and from Watkins Glen International Raceway on Friday, August 1st, giving participants a thrilling opportunity to drive on one of the most renowned racetracks in the world. The rally will continue on Saturday, August 2nd at Veterans Memorial Park at James Street in Hornell from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. The park will be buzzing with Mustang enthusiasts, showcasing a variety of classic and modern Mustangs, all while enjoying the beauty of Veteran Memorial Park. In addition to the Mustangs, we'll have food vendors offering a variety of delicious options, as well as craft vendors to make the event even more fun and festive for the people of all ages. We're also planning some exciting activities for Friday evening before the main rally on Saturday, ensuring that there'll be plenty to do for enthusiasts coming to our community. So congratulations, first of all, to Mayor Buckley and all those involved with this. That's a big addition to Hornell, and we talked with Mayor Buckley not that long ago about how he is very active in this, but making sure that Hornell has these great opportunities for their residents, such as we talked about it extensively, I think in 2 interviews in a row, about the pickleball courts that they put in Hornell. And we talk about their great Christmas event each year. We try to promote that, and there's so many other examples. Arguably their biggest one, not even arguably, their biggest one is the St. Patrick's Day event in Hornell. So this is a nice new addition. So congratulations to Hornell. We all look forward to being there in August. Okay, now we go to the doom and gloom of New York, but not right now when we come back, because we are running late. Don't forget, coming up in the next hour, Kyle Petty will be our guest. Really looking forward to that. On tomorrow's broadcast, it is nearing primary season, so on tomorrow's broadcast, we are going to talk with Jen Mullen. She is running for Steuben County Legislator. She is in the district that is Town of Corning, Hornby, and Caton. So we'll be talking with her on tomorrow's broadcast. I will keep you updated on those interviews as they come in, because there's a primary race in Irwin as well. That's with three people running for Steuben County legislator out of Irwin. We're going to keep you updated. So if you live in the town that this represents, you can tell your neighbors, you can tell your friends. So I'm going to always try to give you as much leeway so you know you can spread the word. So if you are in Hornby, Caton, the town of Corning, make sure to tune in tomorrow and tell your friends that Jen Mullen will be on the program. She's running for Steuben County legislator. All right, we got to take a short break, and then we will enter hour number 2. Stay with us. And welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio right here on Marcus Street in Corning, in the heart of the Gafford District. We're going to be talking about New York State issues quickly, and then get back into some updates on Democrat frontrunners. It seems to change every day who they think will run for president or who they think should be in a leadership position. We'll talk about that as well. And Kamala Harris's return to the spotlight as she criticized President Trump's first 100 days. That was that speech we mentioned yesterday that you could have watched for a mere $25 if you were interested. A comment from a viewer. Mark writes in, "This is for Kyle Petty. I'd personally like to thank him and his father for handing out all the hams to needy people at NASCAR races." Well, Mark, thanks for sending that in. I actually, in full disclosure, I had mentioned this on Monday that I pre-taped the interview. So I will not be able to relay that message to him, but you'll have an opportunity to not only relay that message to him personally, but also his father at this event, if you are so interested in doing so. So you'll learn all about that in our interview during the Steuben County Office for the Aging portion of our program, and that's coming up in just a little bit. Okay, New York State. Now, this is specifically the city, but worth noting as we talk about the mass exodus of people from New York and as the budget, which has not passed, mind you. Governor Hochul kind of trying to force the hands, if you will, of Albany by saying a budget deal had been agreed upon. And now many are saying, well, it hasn't really been agreed upon. There's still a lot of questions. But a net 30,000 New Yorkers fled New York City for Florida's Palm Beach and Miami-Dade counties, according to a new report. In the 5 years that they did research, it has cost us $9.2 billion in income. That's how much they had in income, but the taxes from that income. Think of that. So the 2 Florida counties gained households earnings well above 6 figures, according to the report released Wednesday by the Citizens Budget Commission. Almost 20,000 people with a per capita income of about $190,000 left New York City for Palm Beach during that time, while more than 26,000 individuals with a per capita income of about $266,000 went to Miami-Dade. Now, Hochul urges, this is so weird. We know that Hochul is presenting a budget that doesn't take into effect what will most certainly be cuts in federal funding, pretending that's not going to happen. And then to add almost insult to injury, she continues to attack Trump. She signed on to that lawsuit, looking to cost us even more. But there may be a reason for that. Did you hear? This is being reported by Bernadette Hogan, tweeting this out yesterday. Sources are telling her that in case of a recession or federal cuts, Governor Hochul is prepping a proposal allowing her to choose where to cut state spending. She must submit a plan to the legislature for the okay if amount is $2 billion plus. One source slammed it as a pure power grab, arguing it has the potential to kind of ice out or not give the legislature any say. But again, why go after Trump in these ways? And what I'm talking about is Governor Hochul, yesterday, talked about the, quote, outrageous price of eggs, jokingly telling New Yorkers to make chocolate cake with applesauce instead. The unprompted recipe suggestion came as Hochul during a news conference in Midtown, slammed President Trump's tariffs for driving up prices on everything from avocados to children's toys. And I'm done talking about the price of eggs. Just give up eating them, she said. It's just outrageous. Well, I'm sure that the farmers in New York love to hear her say, just give up eating them. That's a good comment from someone that's just not, she just doesn't have it, folks, especially when it goes off the cuff. Very Kamala Harris-esque. Her quote, "You can make a really good chocolate cake with applesauce. I digress. It's also vegan." I digress. It's also vegan. Her rants about tariffs came as Hochul, who is running for re-election in 2026, tried to position her massive $254 billion state budget deal as helping New Yorkers during an affordability crisis. The approximate $3 billion in giveaways included in the budget, from up to $400 inflation refund checks to a child tax credit expansion, will save families of five roughly $5,000, she claimed. The promised extra cash could arguably help New Yorkers deal with eggflation, which brought prices of the staple above $6 on average nationally. Now, of course, there was no issue with inflation. There was no issues with egg prices, anything like that under the Biden administration. It just all was in the first 100 days of Trump. It's amazing how that works. As a matter of fact, if you question egg prices or any kind of grocery prices back during the Biden administration, you were mocked and ridiculed. But now Governor Hochul giving this recipe, attacking the Trump administration. Why? It's only going to hurt, well, like most of the decisions she makes, it's going to hurt you and I, the New York taxpayer. And at the end of the day, that's not whose interest she has at heart. It's herself and her rise to power. I don't even know what you'd call it. Obviously, wanting to be a power broker in the Democrat Party just does not have it. We saw that in her awkward speech at the DNC. We see it in awkward speeches like this from her, where it's not even off the cuff, and she is very uncomfortable, very anxious, very nervous acting. So again, she repeatedly slammed Trump over spiking prices, but got egg on her face after she claimed she couldn't afford them for her annual Easter event. You recall that? We had brought that story to you back before Easter. She said, we can't even afford eggs, even though her and her husband earned more than $1 million last year. But her affordability pitch, trying to tell you that her budget is going to make things more affordable here in New York State, which we know is just factually inaccurate, it was overshadowed, her whole speech, because of that weird applesauce comment. When a reporter pressed Hochul whether her comments were tone deaf, the governor got more than a little scrambled, or saucy, as the Post put it. I was just showing you that you can make an alternative to using eggs. Chocolate cake recipe, which I am willing to share. It's not tone deaf. If you have to yell at a reporter and say it's not tone deaf, it's probably tone deaf. Now, the Post reached out to at least 7 vegan bakeries for their expert take on Hochul's use of applesauce as an egg replacement. Nearly every bakery contacted said they use cornstarch instead of applesauce. After the press conference, the governor's office offered another giveaway to New Yorkers, the applesauce chocolate cake recipe. And if you want that, you can find that for yourself online. I'm not going to read that for you. But yes, if you have to yell at a reporter that it's not tone deaf, most likely tone deaf. But that goes back to when she said she couldn't afford eggs when her and her husband make over $1 million. Now, our good friend, former congressman and current assemblyman Joe Sempolinski released a statement yesterday to weigh in on the New York State budget, saying about Governor Hochul, well, she jumped the gun big time. What Governor Hochul tried to do with her press conference was make a budget deal happen just by saying it had happened. She basically got stood up at the altar by the Democrat legislative majorities. It's a complete boondoggle. And it would be funny if the governor wasn't talking about spending more than $250 billion, which is irresponsible on its face. This is a whole new level of incompetence by those currently running things in Albany. The most fundamental role of government is to pass an on-time budget. The Democrats in Albany seem pathologically incapable of doing that. What this highlights is the need to fix the state budget process and restore common sense spending practices. We shouldn't have 3 people in a room deciding the budget and the laws for 20 million. That's not representative democracy. So thank you to our good friend, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, for commenting on the boondoggle, as he said, of this process of the New York State budget. Now, and again, it is jumping the gun. So many people are saying, well, we got the cell phone ban, or we got this, or we got that. Well, it's not done yet. She was trying to kind of force their hands in Albany, and that seems to have backfired. We had the analogy yesterday that one lawmaker said it's as if you're going to your potential spouse and saying, hey, I don't think we're ready to get married right now. And your potential spouse says, I already sent out the invitation. So you end up spending, how did the person put it, a life of misery because you had already sent the invitation out. That's what they're saying about her supposed budget deal. But the New York Post editorial board said it is a win for Governor Hochul with the bell-to-bell cell phone ban, even if it comes with a ridiculous $13.5 million giveaway to school districts to help implement it. Yes, I do think the cell phone ban was a win. But the fact that cost, banning a cell phone in schools, cost us, the taxpayers, $13.5 million. I still have yet to have someone explain that to me. I know people have said, well, they need new cabinets to put the cell phones in or something. You're telling me if you had some type of illegal paraphernalia in your desk in school, they wouldn't find a place to put that? Well, it's the same things with cell phones now that they're banned in the schools. But the prohibition restricts students from using their smartphones and other mobile devices during the school day. Schools are to develop alternative ways for parents to contact their children in an emergency, just as they did before cell phone technology existed. Indeed, many schools already have no-cost to low-cost bans in place, which makes the funding a waste, a waste that is all too typical of Albany, albeit barely a drop in the $254 billion budget bucket, for a measure so sensible that even the teachers union supports it. Research shows that outlawing the devices during the school day would help prevent cyberbullying, reduce disciplinary problems, and improve kids' mental health. The New York Post says that they applaud the governor for standing up for the vast majority of parents who want their children off their phones, paying attention, and achieving. And if your school has serious trouble implementing the ban, you're absolutely right to see it as a blaring sign of complete dysfunction. Now, I've had people weighing in, speaking of schools. We are going to talk extensively about the local school budgets. So don't think for a moment we're not going to. I have to do the research on some of the numbers that people have sent me. That's not to question anybody that sent numbers about the cost of administration, things like that. It's not. I just have to do my due diligence. Please understand that. I have to do my due diligence because I can't start reading numbers that are not accurate. So I wanted to highlight that, tie it in with the schools. But we do have to take a short break. I see some comments coming in. Keep those comments coming in. Get ready. Buckle up to sound corny because we've got Kyle Petty, not this next segment, but the segment after. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us a Frankly Speaking roof can. With all those, we sound like Mr. Rogers here, but with all those beautiful clouds and that picturesque view. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in just a few minutes, we will be talking with NASCAR legend Kyle Petty. But let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I'm going to be one of those holdouts that doesn't leave New York. The way that Hochul is giving out freebies, I just know that there will be zero property taxes soon. I have, however, taken several shots to the head over the years. Yes, well, she loves her freebies, and even people in her own party see the inflation rebate check as a vote buy. That because she's up for re-election in 2026, just a way to buy votes. I mean, what is that really about? But at the end of the day, and I know we had this conversation yesterday, so I don't want to relitigate it, but isn't it almost insulting in a way? listen, I don't want these. I don't like freebies like this, obviously, because we end up paying for it in the long run, obviously. But, and I'm not going to scoff at $200. We could all use an extra $200. But what is that going to do at the end of the day? If you get $200, that's groceries, maybe filling up your tank and groceries. Again, I'm not laughing at $200. I'd love to have people throw $200 at me occasionally. But having said that, that's not really any kind of inflation help. It's just a way to buy votes. Okay, comment from a different viewer. As far as eggs go, check out the Amish or Mennonites. I pay $2.50 a dozen. Just say there's ways around to beat the system, and it helps local people. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we had... Well, the New York Post, and I know we had some people that disagree with this yesterday on the program, but the New York Post did have a piece on the on what is being pushed through Albany. Let me just get right to it. Albany's progressives have taken one more step toward utterly surrendering what little remains of their moral center. The Assembly, as threatened by Speaker Carl Heastie, passed a bill legalizing assisted suicide. As it stands, the bill is restricted to mentally competent adults with a terminal diagnosis and 6 months or less to live, allowing them to ask for and be prescribed drugs that will kill them. Proponents sell such bills, saying, who are we to interfere with anyone's choices, and it's the compassionate thing to do. Never mind that suicide just isn't that hard to do, that no one needs an MD's help to do it, nor that such laws inevitably pressure doctors to ignore their own ethics, including the Hippocratic Oath. But the biggest lie of all is it's limited in scope to those already dying. Why do you even care? Because the suicide enthusiasts inevitably move on from these laws to campaign to extend voluntary euthanasia to others. Like Zoré ter Beek, a physically healthy young woman in the Netherlands who was allowed to kill herself because of depression. Sometimes the enthusiasm of the state to assist people in suicide takes on fiscal saving overtures as well. As with the case of Canadian Christine Gother, the government tried to get her to kill herself after she asked for a wheelchair ramp to be installed at her house. In America, advocates have gotten bills into various state legislatures meant to expand the range of people allowed to prescribe the deadly drug. In the case of Vermont, they want some non-doctors to be able to do it. Happily, the New York bill saw significant Democrat breakaway during Assembly passage, with around 20 crossing the aisle to vote nay. And Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins is being coy about the bill's prospects in her chamber. Governor Hochul, your path is clear. If the bill reaches your desk, veto it. There's plenty of opposition even within your own party. Don't let another exercise in faux compassion devalue human life in the Empire State any longer. One last New York State issue, then we're going to move on, and we're getting ready to talk with Kyle Petty. Your thoughts on this? It comes from the New York Times, so I just want to hear your opinion on it. I don't necessarily prescribe to this. But Elise Stefanik, saw her cabinet dream dashed. That was being ambassador to the UN. But she blames Speaker Mike Johnson, not the president. The New York Republican is contemplating a run for governor and nursing a feud with the Speaker, Mike Johnson, after her cabinet nomination was withdrawn. Stefanik, the self-proclaimed ultra-MAGA warrior whom President Trump nominated to serve as ambassador to the UN, had expected to sail through her confirmation vote, which was to be scheduled in April. She even boxed up her office. She sent off her longtime chief of staff to start a new job at the State Department, where he ended up working for 7 days. She completed a farewell tour of her district, checked out schools for her son in New York City, and was looking forward to moving into the $15 million Manhattan penthouse that comes with what is considered a fairly cushy job. Instead, Stefanik is back at Capitol Hill. She pins most of the blame for what happened on Speaker Johnson. To detractors, the president's decision to pull Ms. Stefanik's nomination was something akin to karmic comeuppance for a Republican lawmaker who was elected as a moderate but tacked unapologetically to the MAGA right, coming to personify the opportunistic shape-shifting that has gripped her party in the age of Mr. Trump. You can tell that's from the New York Times. But do you agree with the New York Times suggestion there? I personally don't. I don't think the New York Times has any insider info to Elise Stefanik's thinking, but they say that she blames Speaker Johnson. All right, we got to take a break because I'm very excited. Coming up next, NASCAR legend Kyle Petty, is going to be telling us all about an upcoming event at the Radisson that you are not going to want to miss. So stay with us. When we come back, the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. This is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. Steuben County Office for the Aging, committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and joining us in the Hesselson studio via Zoom is Kyle Petty. This is such an honor. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Well, I know you're going to be in our area. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But could you first tell us a little bit about Victory Junction?
So Victory Junction is a camp for children with serious medical needs and chronic medical conditions. We've seen over 130,000 kids in the 20 years that it's been open. It's part of Paul Newman's umbrella of Serious Fun group of camps. My oldest son, Adam, was killed in a racing accident in 2000. I had run some sports car races with Paul. We had been teammates. Adam had been to camp a couple of times. There's multiple camps, Boggy Creek, he had been there. And he was like, why don't we build a camp? So as soon as his accident happened, I called Paul and I said, this is what we want to do. And, 130,000 kids can't be wrong, man. They all come to camp totally free of charge. The charity ride is what
amazing.
sends a lot of these kids to camp, so we're excited.
Well, what led to the idea of planning this charity ride to raise money for Victory Junction?
So here's what happened, honestly, and to cut to the chase, there was a group of us that really wanted to ride from California to North Carolina, and everybody told us we were crazy. We said we would do it for charity, and everybody told us we were geniuses.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. So we started a charity ride in '95, and then when Adam's accident happened in 2000, everything started going to camp.
Yeah. So how long is it? So this has been happening since '95.
Yeah, crazy, man. It's our 29th year. If it hadn't been for COVID, we'd be on 30 right now.
Well, that's next year.
Just one of those things.
What goes into the planning of picking the route that you're going to take?
So it's amazing. Each year after the ride, we send out questionnaires and say, where would you like to go? Where would you like to go back to?
Yeah.
This year, almost every year, Traverse City is right there at the top. I don't know why. We came here in 2008, but people love Traverse City. And then we just kind of connected the dots. We knew where we wanted to get back to. We wanted to go back to the homestead. But another place everybody wanted to go was Niagara Falls.
Oh, of course.
So we connected to through Detroit to the Henry Ford Museum, then to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, then up to Niagara Falls, and then over to Corning, and then down south.
Oh, that's great that you're going to be in Corning in the Watkins Glen area. So you choose the locations to stop. What made you choose Corning specifically?
Well, I used to drive a race car.
Of course.
I only won a few races, and one of them was there. So yes, I like coming back to that area.
That's a great answer.
That's not no, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Is the Corning Museum of Glass.
Yeah.
I love the Corning Museum of Glass. I love that more than anything in the world. Anytime we would come there to the race, I would always go and take a tour. And watch people blow glass and look at the exhibits, and I just love that place.
Isn't it beautiful? It's really such an underrated tourist attraction.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you what, the whole town of Corning, when you get there, it's just so creative feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With that glass and with everything there, it's an amazing little place.
It is. We're actually on Market Street right here in our studio, so I get to watch people. Right there's the window. I get to watch people all day and see the beautiful
Good
city.
for you.
So it's great.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. So you as a rider, how do you prepare for this long of a trip? What's prep like?
So I tell people it's easy for me. I drove a race car for 30 years. I just sit on my butt and go.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So that was the. But you know what? It is. My wife Morgan organizes the ride. It takes a full year to get the hotels, to get the fuel stops, to get the food stops, to get the local authorities involved with us.
Sure.
And it takes a full year to get that done. And it's so organized. Honestly, as a rider, all you have to do is get on a motorcycle and ride.
Oh wow.
We're just following her wherever she goes in that Dodge police car.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to stop. That's where we're going to start. But it is. I tell you what, we got 125 bikes this year, probably 175 riders because a lot of them have two up. Got another 50 or 60 people that are people that go with us. It's a crowd it's more like a circus or a carnival, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't call it what you want to when they come to town.
Well, and people should be made aware that the sign up to be a rider is over. So if they show up at the Radisson, don't jump on the train, so to speak. That you can look at the website and find out for maybe next year, the year in the future, right? Okay.
Yes. Listen, and once the ride starts, we kind of got it in that place, and
Right.
That's because that mean old ugly thing known as insurance kind of rears its head, and you
Right.
got to have your own. You got to have that group. You know what I mean? But the thing is, what we do along the way, and what we do, we ask people to go to KylePettyCharityRide.com and give us your name and address, and as soon as we get ready for next year's ride, we'll send out an invitation. Now it's first come, first serve, so. If you get it at 9:02, it better be back in by 9:03 because this thing fills up really, really fast. But there's an opportunity to ride always.
Well, and people can support the ride by going to the Radisson on May 7th at 3:45 p.m. What's that like for fans, for the experience?
Chaos.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and say it. So don't expect anything. No, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. My dad will be with us, Richard Petty.
Yeah.
Herschel Walker, NFL superstar, Heisman Trophy winner. He'll be there with us. Kenny Schrader, Kenny Wallace, Max Pappas, ex-Formula One driver, IndyCar driver. He'll be there. Rick Allen, the voice of NASCAR. Rutledge Wood, one of my best friends who was in Top Gear America and hosted the show The Floor is Lava, that a lot of kids will know about. So he'll be there. So come on out. They'll sign autographs. There'll be plenty of people there. We'll have merchandise. We'll have all kinds of stuff.
And we can donate to the cause there, correct?
Yes, for sure, for sure. We always have a little bucket going around, and basically we call that small change, big impact. If you've got a few quarters in your pocket, drop it in the bucket, man. It's amazing how much money you can raise that way, and how many kids you can send to camp.
Well, this is so great too because you have such a connection with NASCAR fans that they're going to want to come out and see this. But you have something for everyone at this event.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah.
Listen, I tell people this. All I got to do is bring Richard Petty, and I've got something for everyone.
You're good.
Because here's the deal. He drove a race car for like 30 or 40 years and won untold number of races and championships. And then when they did the Cars movies, they asked him to be the voice of Mr. the King. So he has fans that are from 6 to 96.
Yeah.
Everybody loves him.
Perfect.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. He'll get kids that come up and just tug on his pants and say, Mr. the King, can I get your autograph? I'm like, oh my God, how do they know who Richard Petty is? So, listen, we'll have stuff for everybody. Just come on out.
How long is the planning? Is this a year-long process then to get this off the ground?
Basically, honestly, we'll get home on May 10th or 11th.
Okay.
We'll take off a couple of weeks. And then we've already got our next year's plans, where we want to start, where we want to end. We'll start calling those hotels, start calling those routes, and start getting things in order. And then the intensity level rises as the year goes on.
Other than Corning and Watkins in our area, of course, is there a stop that you're looking forward to the most?
You know what? There's a couple of stops, I think. Bedford, Pennsylvania. I'm looking forward to there. It's a small town. And kind of about the size of Corning, to be honest with you. And when we come to a town like that, it's a big deal sometimes, and it really is. And we've never been to Bedford. We've been to Corning a couple of times, but I think the one place that everybody is looking forward to is Niagara Falls. I'm 64 years old. I went to Niagara Falls in November for the first time.
Is that right?
And here's the other thing I want people to see, and I'm going to tell you this. I can't wait because we have a lot of riders from all over the country. We've not ridden through New York much. I can't wait for people to see how pretty the state of New York is. Yeah. I think people, when you say New York, people think city.
Yeah.
City. It's not
They
the
sure
city.
do. No.
Man, it is a beautiful state. It is a beautiful state. And I can't wait till we come down across the lakes and we come along out through the country and you see the farms and the rolling hills. It's just a beautiful state.
It's not what they're going to expect if they think New York City, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man.
How much have you raised through the years, do you think?
We've raised a little bit over $22 million in the years that we've done this. So, and here's what I tell people. So we don't set a limit. You know, a lot of people you'll see, they'll have a goal or a fundraising. We need to raise $100,000. We need to, and I tell people, we'll take anything. If you've got a pig, bring it. We'll pet it, then we'll make barbecue out of it.
Right.
We'll use it. I promise you, we will use it.
So just before we go, what should people know about cheering on the riders at the Radisson on the 7th?
Yeah, if you're along the route, go to KylePettyCharityRide.com and you can see the route that we're coming. Listen, you may not even have to come to the Radisson. We may come right by your front door.
Oh,
you
that's
can just
true.
Step out and wave at us. So if go and look at the route. If you come to the Radisson, we've got T-shirts, we've got hats, we've got autograph cards that are free. Just come on out. We'll sign stuff for you. If you've got memorabilia you want to bring out, the side off of my car as many times as I wrecked at Watkins Glen, bring it. I'll sign it. It doesn't make any difference. Just bring it. We'll sign it. We'll stand in the parking lot for a while, and then we'll go to dinner. And we're going to dinner probably somewhere close to where you're at.
Yeah.
Right along in there. We're going to pick restaurants and head out.
Oh, perfect. All right, just before we go, if you humble me, I got to ask this. What is the feeling like to play the Grand Ole Opry?
Amazing. And listen, and I tell people this. I'm just an amateur musician. I love to play, and I'll play open mic nights, and I'll play out and do stuff. But when I had that opportunity, I've driven race cars at Daytona. I've driven race cars at Indy. I've won races. I've done stuff. But to walk out on that stage and stand in that circle and sing at the places where George Jones and Minnie Pearl and Hank Williams Sr. and all those guys have stood, and all those people stood. It is an incredibly emotional and humbling experience to stand there. It's scary as all get out. I'll tell you that. I'll run 200 miles an hour in a race car, but it's scary as all get out to stand on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
What an honor. I saw that, and I was so impressed that you must have just been on cloud nine, especially when it was over. Right.
Yeah.
So, again, we'll see you on Wednesday, May 7th. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having us. Look forward to seeing everybody out at the Radisson.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you again to Kyle Petty for being our guest. The event coming up next Wednesday at 3:45. As you know, it goes to an amazing cause. The Kyle Petty charity ride across America. Look at all those big name celebrities you'll have the opportunity to meet at the event. As he mentioned, his own father, Richard Petty, Herschel Walker, and others. You see that on the top of your screen. Find out more at KylePettyCharityRide.com, and we appreciate Kyle Petty giving us so much time on the broadcast this morning during the Steuben County Office for the Aging segment of our program. Let's read some viewer comments. Awesome charity. Yes. Thank you very much. I think it is an awesome charity. I agree. I'm glad he could tell us all about it. Comment from a different viewer. He seems like a really nice guy. I would totally agree. He was a very nice guy, even when we weren't recording the interview. Had a nice chat with him. Just a real down-to-earth, real nice guy. Comment from a different viewer. Did Hochul say whether she scrambled her applesauce or did she fry it sunny side up? Thank you very much for that comment. Sounds like someone might be making breakfast and wants to try Hochul's tip. All right, yesterday, Kamala Harris gave her speech marking the first 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency, saying, "Now, I know tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration, and I'll leave others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far. But I will say this. Instead of the administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals." She accused Trump of advancing an agenda of narrow, self-serving vision of America, threatening to bring a constitutional crisis, but she did not end there with the cliche talking points. So she threw in constitutional crisis. She made sure to also mention perhaps the most used word in today's lexicon, chaos. Quote, "Some people are describing what has happened in recent months as absolute chaos. And of course, I understand why, and it's certainly true of those tariffs. But friends, please let us not be duped into thinking everything is chaos. What we are in fact witnessing is a high-velocity event where a vessel is being used for the swift implementation of an agenda that has been decades in the making. An agenda to slash public education, an agenda to shrink government, and then to privatize its services, all while giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. Right now, we are living in their vision for America. It's an agenda, a narrow, self-serving vision of America where they punish truth tellers, favor loyalists, cashing in on their power, and leave everyone to fend for themselves, all while abandoning allies and retreating from the world." She further alluded to the deportation of illegal alien and a suspected MS-13 gang member, someone who's been accused of repeatedly abusing his wife, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, saying it's not okay to detain and to disappear American citizens or anyone without due process. Well, we know he was not an American citizen. She then praised the action of congressional Democrats resisting the Trump administration, naming several lawmakers, including Senator Chris Van Hollen, and she was referencing in her praise, that was in reference to apparently his trip to El Salvador. Cory Booker. Interesting that she would mention Cory Booker. Again, I don't quite understand why giving a speech for 25 hours and then not accomplishing anything with that speech other than talking for 25 hours, why that is seen as leading the resistance. I think that's a real problem that the Democrat Party is facing right now, that there is a lot of bluster, not a lot of substance. It's the same with the kind of faux town halls that are being held even locally. Speaking for 25 hours at the end of the day and accomplishing nothing, to me, is kind of a great definition of what the resistance really is. She also praised Bernie Sanders, AOC, saying all in different ways have been speaking with moral clarity about this moment. Some are criticizing the bizarre reference she made to that viral elephant video. I'm sure you've seen that video where there was an earthquake and the elephants all gathered around the youngest elephant. A lot of folks are wondering what's going to guide us through this moment, she said. How are we going to figure out how to chart this course? Please allow me, friends, to digress for a moment. Today's word of the day is digress. Governor Hochul used that when she was giving her recipe of making chocolate cake with applesauce instead of eggs. But okay, it's kind of dark in here, but I'm asking for a show of hands. Who saw the video from a couple of weeks ago, the one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you have not seen it. She then let out one of her kind of infamous or famous laughs, however you want to put it. She described how they felt the earth shaking beneath their feet. Elephants in the zoo got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. So apparently that is what needs to be done by the resistance in her mind. Kind of a stretch, but an analogy nonetheless. What a powerful metaphor, she said. Praising herself, I guess. Because we know those who try to incite fear are most effective when they divide and conquer, when they separate the herd, when they try to make everyone think they are alone. The lighthearted moment came in the middle of a speech that painted a dystopian view of America under Trump as her former 2024 foe marks his 100th day in office. And I read some of those other takeaways. We're not going to go through the whole speech or fall into the trap of reading quotes. Now, weirdly enough, also in the news yesterday was her running mate, Tim Walz. He continued his self-described listening tour. Now, he's doing this kind of, well, first of all, to cause speculation about whether he'll run in 2028 or not. Some of these people and their delusions of grandeur. But they're also doing this to criticize representatives who aren't holding town halls. That's why he really kind of kicked off that trend. He was asked, or just started talking about, one or the other, I'm not positive, about why he was chosen to be Kamala Harris's running mate. Because a lot of people thought it would be maybe Gavin Newsom because he was already out campaigning. Some thought it would be Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania was such an important state and Josh Shapiro popular, had some name recognition. Some have speculated that both Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro are looking for a 2028 run. Gavin Newsom's made that pretty crystal clear, but even at the time, looking for a 2028 run and thinking that Kamala Harris was the weak candidate that we had been told she was for over 4 years. So maybe not wanting to take part in that campaign because it could hurt them in the long run. So saying, well, we'll pass. There's that speculation. There's other speculation about Josh Shapiro and because of, as Van Jones said, the marbling of anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party. That's Van Jones saying it, not me. That maybe that was one of the reasons why Shapiro wasn't chosen. But Walz said that Harris chose him in part because, and I quote, I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, and put them at ease. He described himself as the permission structure for white men from rural America to vote for Democrats. This is the exact quote. I think I'll give you pretty good stuff, but I'll also give you 10% problematic. Okay. Moderator Brittany Shepard asked about why he didn't take the message to cable news to reach a larger audience. Walz laughed off criticism, describing himself as a knucklehead. Now, again, he said not that long ago, when asked if he is thinking about running in 2028, saying something to the extent of, I'll do anything that they need of me. Again, kind of a delusion of grandeur. I think we need to collectively run a presidential campaign without a candidate right now that builds all the infrastructure. By the time we get to 2028, we're ready, Walz said. He also said that he would have done some things differently in 2024, and we would have won. Acknowledging that Democrats came up short in November, Walz said that the party is better off doing more in every forum, following criticism that Democrats didn't prioritize media appearances enough in 2024. Well, that had a lot to do, of course, with the weakness of the candidate herself, who is infamous for the word salads and not being great off the cuff, as you know. But he said that he was chosen because I know when I think of Tim Walz, I think of football, fixing your truck, hunting. I think of Tim Walz as a man's man, and that is why he was chosen to be her running mate, according to none other than Tim Walz himself. We got to take a short break. We'll be right back. Your thoughts on that and your comments when we come back. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. But the 25-hour speech broke a record. You're right. That's in reference to Cory Booker, who they're pointing to as kind of one of the faces of the resistance. And I guess that's the big takeaway from the speech, that it broke a record, and that means he's fighting the good fight. To me, it's a lot of talk, no real success story there. But you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Comment from a different viewer. When do we see the Where's Joe, like Where's Waldo shirt? Good question. We have not heard much from the former president, even though he said if the Democrats need him, he will step in to campaign. And the Democrats said, no, we're good. Stay where you are. Comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Sergeant Dave here. Well, hey, Sergeant Dave. How are you? That was the best interview with Kyle I've seen you have yet. Wow, thank you. That's very high praise, Sergeant Dave. I appreciate that. You were awesome, and so was Kyle. Thank you. And that's in reference to our interview. If you missed it, you missed a great one. It will be up on our website, wydctv.com, a little bit later on today, if you missed it, and also on our YouTube page. But yes, Kyle Petty was very kind, very nice guy. I really appreciated him giving us the time and talking about such an amazing cause and giving us an opportunity to attend that event at the Radisson next Wednesday, which is going to be a blast. Okay, Gretchen Whitmer is, the long knives are out. It's interesting. She went from a star in the Democrat Party, I would say one of the odds-on favorites for 2028. Now you have headlines like this from the AP. Gretchen Whitmer risks backlash from Democrats as she hugs Trump in Michigan. Whitmer, a potential 2028 presidential candidate, shared a hug with Trump as he arrived in her home state on Tuesday, less than a month after she shielded her face from cameras during an Oval Office appearance alongside Trump. That was very awkward. She admitted later it was a mistake. She held the folder up to her face, trying not to have her picture taken. Very awkward. Now it's the opposite side. She had the Oval Office picture. Then he called her up on the 100-day rally, and now there's photos surfacing of them having a hug as he arrived. But the embrace between Trump and Whitmer are notable at a time when Americans are increasingly saying Trump's priorities are off, and Democrats are agitating for their leaders to take a more comforting approach or confrontational approach to the president. Yeah, if you recall, after she met in the Oval Office trying to help out the citizens of her state, which is her job as governor, the media, specifically CNN, criticized her, saying that doesn't look like the face of the resistance. But also, I know we talk about the media a lot. There's that biased journalism 101 tactic of, at a time when Americans are increasingly saying Trump's priorities are off, and you have quotes very often where they'll say, some are saying, it's that same mindset. So she is hurting herself by just showing that she wants to help the people of her state of Michigan by meeting with the president, where our governor taking a very different tact. Our governor confrontational with the president, criticizing the president, joining on lawsuits against the president, all while heavily depending on federal funding in her $250 billion state budget. Rahm Emanuel, who is also considering a run for 2028, said that Trump is ruling versus governing. Now, with all of that, as we talk about the Democrats, Chuck Schumer dismissed the questions about his low approval rating. I didn't realize this. We didn't have an opportunity to talk about this on the program yesterday. A new CNN poll has Schumer at a 17% favorability rating. His worst approval numbers in any poll dating back to 2017. He says it doesn't matter. He says polls come and go. Our party is united, yada, yada, yada. But Chuck Schumer at 17% favorability rating. All right, we have to take a short break. Oh, AOC, by the way. AOC is now maybe not in the position of wanting a leadership role. There is an opportunity there where they could move her up. Now, not reportedly interested. Representative Gary Connolly, who took that leadership position from her, essentially. Now he is stepping down. She doesn't see it as maybe as being in her best interest, especially as they're talking about a 2028 race. And young Democrats challenge longtime incumbents as the party grapples with generational divide. An interesting piece of CNN. All right, now we got to take a break. Get your last minute comments in so that we can read those before we wrap up. We are going to breeze through some of these topics very quickly in the next segment, so stay with us. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I sure don't understand Gretchen Whitmer, and I don't trust her. I have a memory, and we can't be fooled again. Thank you very much. Quickly, Stacey Abrams, remember that name? She has hinted at another election bid. The perennial Georgia gubernatorial candidate is reportedly mulling yet another campaign for the office in 2026 when the term-limited Republican Governor Brian Kemp must depart. We'll let Democrats deal with that for themselves. Trump revealed what he told Zelensky at the Pope's funeral, saying, I was telling him that it's a very good thing that if we produce a deal that you sign it. Russia is much bigger and much stronger. Now, this is interesting. That was at that News Nation town hall with the president, and he was asked by Chris Cuomo. Trump did shrug off the shortage fears that people, and specifically the media, have been highlighting about shortages due to the China tariffs, saying it will happen. Meaning talking with President Xi Jinping. I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden selling this stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be empty. Well, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30. And maybe the 2 dolls will cost a couple bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff, much of which, not all of it, but much of it we don't need, and we have to make a fair deal. Illegal border crossings remain near historic lows in April after Trump's crackdown, and that's as much as I'm going to be able to get to today. Thank you again to Kyle Petty for being our guest this morning. Really appreciate him being on the show. It was a great time talking with him. On tomorrow's program, Steuben County legislative candidate Jen Mullen will be joining us. That's for the districts of the town of Corning, Caton, and Hornby, so don't miss that. Get your questions in to me. Have a great day. We'll see you every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. See you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Look forward to it already.